Hello everyone. Let's talk a little bit more about user stories. So, one framework you would hear product managers or product owners talking about often is I.N.V.E.S.T. It's an acronym. Do you do you need to remember this acronym? Not exactly. Do you need to follow it 101% every single time? So, what does I.N.V.E.S.T stand for? Let's go one by one. The I stands for independent, the N for negotiable, the V for valuable, the E for estimable, the S for small, and the T for testable. Now, what does each of this mean? I for independent. When you're writing a user story, you have to make sure that the user story is independent of all other user stories and requirements. It is one single unit which is to be built by the development team and tested by the QA team. You have to be careful to make sure that it can be a standalone component. That is what is meant by independent. Now, negotiable. The user story which you have written must be negotiable. You must be able to negotiate the various requirements, the various needs which have been discussed in this particular user story. You must be able to integrate the discussions with all the stakeholders of this particular product or the feature or the project you have undertaken. That is what is meant by negotiable. V for valuable. Needless to say, which I have been talking about continuously until now, this particular user story must always deliver some value to the end user. It cannot be just a standalone component which you can negotiate with other stakeholders. It has to be of some value for the end user. The end user can be internal, like if you are making some architectural changes and like you are a technical product manager. In that case, say you are working with solution architects and you are making some changes. At the same time, it can be the end user who is your customer. They are using this particular feature. They will be using it. So it must deliver some value to them. Estimable. When writing a user story, like I said in my previous video, you have to get the confidence of your engineers. What does that mean? It means that they must be able to break down this story and estimate how much time they would need to invest into building this particular user story. So they must be able to break it down into their sizes, into their individual components. They must be able to estimate how much work needs to be done, how many story points, which I will address later, what exactly is a story point, but how many story points they need to assign so that the velocity of the project can be determined. So yeah, S stands for small. It goes together with the other components. It has to be small. It cannot be masquerading as an epic. It cannot be such a big user story that the development team is taking forever to build it. It has to be small. You have to break it down into such small components. And as a product manager, this is your job. Testable. Needless to say, the last point involves the acceptance criteria. Yes, you got it right. The acceptance criteria must be defined for the user story, and you must write it in a way that the acceptance criteria can be defined so that the QA team initially, actually, the development team can do the unit testing, and later the QA team can do their set of functional tests on this particular user story. So this is what exactly the I.N.V.E.S.T model stands for. Let's take a small example, a very small one-liner. Say a user story is written like, build a login system. Does this stand this invest model? Not at all. How do you understand anything from it? You cannot even break it down into anything. It is not independent, it is not negotiable, it is not valuable. I mean, in some ways yes, it is valuable, but what is the value which is being delivered to the end customer is not mentioned. It is not estimable, it is not small, because it can be as big as it can get, and then definitely it is not testable. Now compare that to something like this. As an end user, I want to be able to log into this system using my email credentials and a valid password so that I can save my preferences on my profile. Now see this. It's an independent story. You can negotiate the various parameters involved in this. You know the exact value the customer is getting. They are able to create a particular profile and they are able to save their preferences. It is estimable. The engineering team would know how much work needs to be put into it, what all are the different components they need to build. So will the designers. They will know what needs to be designed and how to be designed and attached to this particular ticket. It is definitely small, and for heaven's sake, it is testable because you have clearly mentioned what all is needed in this. So yeah, this is an example of I.N.V.E.S.T. Once again, you don't need to remember the acronym. I don't. I mean, I had to memorize it at some point in my career early, definitely, for interviews, I would dare say. But having said that, I have been following it every single time I have written a user story, and I have written tens of thousands of user stories in my career. So yeah, you have to follow this model every single time you write a user story. What are some of the other challenges you have faced while writing user stories as a product owner or as a product manager? Please write it in the comments and we can take it up in the next videos. Thank you.